Picture this. You're standing in a circular wooden arena, packed shoulder to shoulder with screaming spectators. The stench of sweat, blood, and fear fills your nostrils. In the center, chained to a stake, stands a massive brown bear, 8 feet tall, weighing over 600 pounds, with claws that could tear a man in half. Suddenly, the gates swing open, and 6 snarling mastiffs charge into the ring. But here's what will shock you. This wasn't some underground illegal fight. This was Sunday afternoon entertainment, attended by kings and peasants alike, cheered on by entire families, including children. Welcome to the world of bear baiting, a blood sport so brutal, so visceral, that it made Roman gladiator fights look like a children's playground. By the end of this video, you'll discover why Tudor England was obsessed with watching animals tear each other apart, how a single bear named Sackerson became more famous than Shakespeare's actors, and the shocking reason why this barbaric practice survived for over 600 years. But first, let me ask you this. What kind of society creates entertainment from suffering? And more importantly, are we really that different today? If you're ready to dive into one of history's darkest and most fascinating chapters, hit that subscribe button, because what you're about to learn will change how you see medieval and Renaissance society forever. And trust me, by the end of this video you'll understand why one particular bear baiting event in 1666 changed the course of English history in ways no one could have predicted. Let's travel back to medieval England, around the year 1200. The Normans have conquered Britain, bringing with them a taste for spectacle that would evolve into something far more sinister than anything Rome ever conceived. You see, bear baiting didn't start as organized entertainment. It began as practical animal training. Medieval hunters needed dogs brave enough to face wild boars and bears in the forest, so they created a testing ground. But here's where it gets interesting. What started as training quickly became theater. The first recorded bear baiting arena was built in London around 1526, but the practice was already centuries old by then. These weren't small neighborhood affairs. We're talking about massive wooden amphitheaters that could hold thousands of spectators. The most famous was Paris Garden in Southwark, London, which sat right next to Shakespeare's Globe Theatre. Think about that for a moment. While Shakespeare was writing Hamlet, next door, crowds were watching bears fight for their lives. Now, let me paint you a picture of what actually happened in these arenas, because Hollywood has never shown you anything this intense. The bear there, usually a massive brown bear captured from the wild, would be chained by the neck or leg to a thick wooden post in the center of a circular pit. The chain was just long enough to give the bear some mobility, but not enough to escape. Around the perimeter, hundreds of spectators would lean over wooden railings, shouting, betting, eating meat pies, and drinking ale like they were at a modern sports stadium. Then came the dogs. Not just any dogs. These were specially bred mastiffs, some weighing over 200 pounds, trained from birth for one purpose: to grab onto the bear and never let go. The bear baiting masters would release them in waves. First, maybe 2 or 3 dogs to test the bear's strength. The crowd would roar as the bear would swipe with claws that could decapitate a man, sending dogs flying through the air like ragdolls. But here's what made bear baiting different from gladiator fights. The bear almost never won. You see, the goal wasn't to kill the bear quickly. That would end the show. The goal was to create maximum drama, maximum blood, maximum suffering for as long as possible. A good bear could perform for hours, killing dozens of dogs while slowly being worn down by exhaustion and blood loss. And the crowd? They loved every second of it. Nobles would bet enormous sums, sometimes entire estates, on whether the bear would kill 5 dogs or 15 before falling. Merchants would close their shops to attend. Priests would give bear baiting their blessing, claiming it taught moral lessons about the struggle between good and evil. Even Queen Elizabeth I was such a fan that she had her own personal bear baiting arena built at Greenwich Palace. But wait, it gets worse. Because bears were expensive and hard to capture, promoters had to get creative. They started organizing variety shows of animal combat. Picture this lineup. After the bear baiting, they'd bring out a bull chained to a post, surrounded by bulldogs bred specifically to latch onto the bull's nose and hang on until the bull collapsed from blood loss and exhaustion. Then maybe a horse versus a pack of wolves. Or, and this is documented, they would tie a monkey to the back of a horse and release a pack of dogs to chase them around the arena. The creativity of cruelty was boundless. In one famous event in 1583, they filled a ring with water and forced a bear to fight dogs while swimming. In another, they set a bear on fire and released dogs to attack it while it burned. The crowd cheered louder the more creative the torture became. Now you might be thinking, Surely this was just entertainment for the bloodthirsty masses, right? Surely the educated elite saw through this barbarism. Wrong, dead wrong. Bear baiting was attended by everyone from illiterate peasants to university professors, from merchants to monarchs. In fact, the more educated you were, the more likely you were to attend, because you could afford the better seats and higher stakes betting. King James I was so obsessed with bear baiting that he imported bears from Russia specifically for his entertainment. He would host diplomatic meetings while watching bears fight, using the spectacle to impress foreign ambassadors with English culture. When the Spanish ambassador visited in 1604, the king's idea of showing English sophistication was a bear baiting event where they released 100 dogs against 10 bears simultaneously. But here's where the story takes an even darker turn. There was one bear who became more famous than any actor, any politician, any writer of his time. His name was Sakasson, and he was the Michael Jordan of bear baiting. This bear survived in the Paris Garden Arena for over 8 years, killing an estimated 300 dogs. He became so famous that Shakespeare actually wrote him into The Merry Wives of Windsor. People would travel from across Europe just to see Sakasson fight. Sakasson had his own merchandise. You could buy Sakasson ale mugs, Sakasson playing cards, even Sakasson meat pies sold outside the arena. Ballads were written about his victories. Children played games pretending to be Sakasson. He was literally the first sports celebrity in English history, and his sport was murder. But here's what nobody expected. Sakasson's fame would ultimately contribute to bear baiting's downfall, because as more people became emotionally invested in individual bears, some began to question whether creatures capable of such intelligence and personality deserved to die for entertainment. It was a slow change, taking centuries, but it started with people who came to see Sakasson fight and left wondering if what they'd witnessed was entertainment or atrocity. The beginning of the end came from an unexpected source: the Puritans. Now, you might think the Puritans opposed bear baiting because they cared about animal welfare. You'd be wrong. They opposed it because it was fun. The Puritan complaint wasn't that bear baiting was cruel. It was that it distracted people from thinking about God and salvation. In their view, any entertainment that brought people joy was potentially sinful. When the Puritans gained power in 1642, they didn't just ban bear baiting, they literally executed the bears. Parliament passed an ordinance declaring that all bears used for baiting were to be shot, their bodies burned, and their ashes scattered. They weren't saving the bears, they were eliminating temptation. But here's the twist that changes everything. And this is where that 1666 event I mentioned earlier comes into play. When the monarchy was restored in 1660, King Charles II immediately legalized bear baiting again. The arenas reopened, new bears were imported, and the blood sports resumed with even greater enthusiasm than before. The king himself attended bear baiting events weekly, making them more fashionable than ever. Then came September 2nd, 1666. A small fire started in a bakery on Pudding Lane in London. That fire would become the Great Fire of London, destroying 80% of the medieval city. And here's the historical irony that most people don't know. The fire spread so quickly, partly because the narrow streets around Paris Garden and the other bear baiting arenas were packed with wooden buildings and crowds of people. The very infrastructure built to support blood sports helped the fire consume the city. When London was rebuilt, the new city planners had a choice: rebuild the bear baiting arenas, or use that valuable riverside land for other purposes. They chose commerce. The great arenas were never rebuilt. Bear baiting continued in smaller venues, but it never again achieved the massive scale and social acceptance it had enjoyed for 400 years. The final blow came not from moral outrage, but from changing economics. By the 1700s, capturing and maintaining fighting bears had become incredibly expensive. Meanwhile, new forms of entertainment were emerging: professional theatre, music halls, early forms of what would become professional sports. People still wanted spectacle, but they no longer needed to see blood to be entertained. The last legal bear baiting event in England was held in 1835. Though illegal fights continued for decades afterward, the practice officially ended, not because society suddenly developed compassion for animals, but because there were simply better, cheaper ways to entertain the masses. So what does this tell us about human nature? For over 600 years, some of the most educated, cultured, religious people in European history gathered regularly to watch animals torture each other to death. They bet on it, celebrated it, made celebrities out of the victims, and passed the tradition down to their children as normal entertainment. This wasn't some fringe activity practiced by social outcasts. This was mainstream culture. Kings and queens attended, priests blessed it, scholars wrote about it, artists painted it, poets celebrated it in verse. And here's the question that should keep you awake at night. What forms of entertainment that we consider normal today will future generations look back on with the same horror we feel about bear baiting? What are we blind to in our own culture because it's simply too normal, too accepted, too profitable to question? The story of bear baiting isn't just about the past. It's a mirror reflecting our present. It's about how easily entire societies can normalize cruelty when it's packaged as entertainment. It's about how economic interests can override moral concerns for centuries. It's about how even the most educated, sophisticated people can participate in systems of suffering without recognizing what they're really doing. Before you click away, I want you to think about this. Night of those cheering crowds in the bear baiting arenas weren't monsters. They were people just like us, living in their time, accepting their normal. They had families they loved, causes they believed in, moral principles they tried to follow. And yet, every Sunday after church, they would gather to watch animals die for fun. So here's my challenge to you. What's our bear baiting arena? What are we cheering for that future generations will condemn? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more hidden histories that will change how you see the world. Because if there's one thing the story of bear baiting teaches us, it's that the most dangerous blindness is the kind that lets us call cruelty entertainment. And the most important question we can ask is not, how could they, but how could we? Thanks for watching, and remember, history isn't just about the past, it's about understanding who we are right now.